I'm your co-host, Ferris Kennedy, and then my partner in crime,
Stephen Wheeler.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, it finally happened. We have the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Dr. Ian Clarke, musicologist. Dr. Clarke, how the hell are you?
You know, it gives me great pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. As I mentioned earlier, before we went on the air, one condition of my parole is this community service. And so I have to do like 3 hours a week. And I decided to come and visit you guys. So first of all, I want to thank you for your help with the parole board. And hopefully I can contribute in a meaningful way.
Well, this is fantastic. Considering my spouse worked at the parole board and had some connections there, we were able to swing Dr. Clarke out a little bit earlier on his release. And today we are actually in a recording studio. And Dr. Clarke and I are in one side of the room on the Good Spectre. And poor Wheels, you're stuck with Armando in the booth because Armando just cannot push the record button. Is that correct, Wheels?
Exactly.
Plus he's been quarantined for that problem.
Yeah, that too. So I don't know, you and Armando must have some sort of cold of something that I'm not interested in. And why is he putting his nipples up to the windows? This is what I don't understand. So this is awesome. We finally got Dr. Clarke in, and he is a doctor. Why? Because if you can name Dr. Dre Dr. Clarke, then why can't I not just call Dr. Ian Clarke, Dr. Clarke, because this is what it is.
It is legal, too. I am a doctor of divinity, and if you ever need spiritual guidance, I'm your man. So stop by. It's a great pleasure, son, to be here, and hopefully we can contribute. What are we up to this today?
Well, Dr. Clarke,
yes,
this is going to be one of the episodes where we're also going to have segues, and we're also going to have a segment called Ian's Knock. And during the show, I will kind of just point at you, and you just knock on whoever you feel deserves to be knocked on. And basically, Dr. Clarke is going to dump on this artist, plain and simple.
Let's have some fun.
Let's have some fun with it. So basically what we got today, Wheels, we got rockers these bands try to erase. How do you feel about that?
It just goes to show there's injustice in this world.
Dr. Clarke?
Or there is justice in some cases.
What's your take on it, Dr. Clarke?
I think that this is what happens, is that these morons become rich, and they start to, too many rats, right, compression, and they start to go after each other. It's happened to the bands big bands that you know, from the Beatles to the Stones, to the little bands you've never heard of. But as soon as you inject money into it, most of these guys didn't grow up with money. They go ape. And some of them survive, a lot of them don't. And it often has to do with money. You know, as an aside, one of the best things the Doors ever did is Jim Morrison sat down with them and said, listen, we're always going to share writing credits. So it's not as though the drummer John Densmore wrote Light My Fire. But he's living like a palatial king right now somewhere in Los Angeles because he has a quarter of the credits on that song. Everything they wrote was credited to four guys. Lennon McCartney didn't do that. Jagger Richards didn't do that. Brian Wilson didn't do that. So the other guys are just kind of bitter that they're living in a slum while Brian Wilson's in a mansion somewhere. That's the way it works.
The life is not fair. What do you think about that, Wheels?
I think it's a nice thing to put on a T-shirt.
Wow. So let's get things going. Now, the first one here, it's not really someone that they erased. It's basically someone that was always there, and then they just decided to finally give him some credit. And I'm going to touch on this right now. Bon Jovi's Hugh McDonald is the patron saint. That's what they refer to him as, that. And, you know, has he been really one of those guys that was trying to be erased? Not really. He was basically unrecognized, and this is how it usually goes. So instead, you have a guy who played just off stage rather with the rest of the group, did all the stuff with the album covers, helped with the official website, the writing, all that good stuff.
Right.
And then, you know, Bon Jovi's been around since what, mid-'80s?
No, 1952 or something. They've been around forever.
They've been around forever.
I saw a picture of him recently. He's a great-grandfather.
They were trying to get him into a helicopter for years. I know that. So anyways, I think it was, just 2018, just this year, they finally got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and they made him a member. Hugh McDonald became an official Bon Jovi member 2 years ago. Or wait, is it 2 years ago? What do my notes say? Yeah, 2016. Dr. Clarke, explain this to me. And Wheels, you could chime in. How the hell do you go from, I'm going to say it came in 84, because they're modern rock, just like U2 and all those bands. You came in 84. This guy helped you throughout the whole thing, and now you want to give him credit?
I think, again, it's money. I think this is a great example. This is like the ultimate trivia question. How many Beatles are still alive? People usually say 2. It's actually 3, right? Mm-hmm. Pete Best still lives. Pete Best didn't make any money from the Beatles until they released, the Free as a Bird stuff, the anthology stuff, because he was on a few things. So for all those years, from like 62 to 70 when they recorded, didn't make a penny. So a lot of it just comes down to money. If I suddenly credit you as a member, that acknowledges you and that validates you, and your lawyer's coming after me. But if I can ignore you, for instance, you show me one interview where McCartney talks about Pete Best for more than 3 or 4 words. He just doesn't mention it. But he doesn't mention it because if he mentions it, that validates it, and they come after him for money. That's why he doesn't mention it. So it's usually money these guys are up against. We're going to get to some more heavy hitters when we talk about the Eagles and stuff about money. And I'm not kidding. It's just like a poison for these dodos.
Wheels, what do you think?
I completely agree. I think there's also ego to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these guys think, or like to think, that they're the genius behind everything.
Yeah.
And when you say, well, no, you see, there's these other guys, like the studio musicians in LA that used to be on every album of every group in the 50s, 60s, and
Sure.
70s. Nobody knows their name, never get any credit, but they're the reason why we love those tunes.
So it's like kind of like that featuring, So it's like featuring so-and-so, basically.
They'll do that, but the guys like the Wrecking Crew, you don't mention them by name because they'll want more money. So they might have like Glenn Campbell on lead guitar. Oh, he's pretty good, right? You don't mention it's Glenn Campbell because then you got to pay him more. So you give him union scale at $300 a session instead of $3,000 or $30,000, whatever it works out to. That's why you don't mention you got Glenn Campbell, who played on all those hits, who played with the Beach Boys. Show me Glenn Campbell on a Beach Boy album.
I never knew. I didn't even know.
Sure, he's on Beach Boy albums, but you can't until he got his own TV show. I think in '68, Glenn Campbell wasn't credited that way. So there you go, because you have to pay them off union scale. There was a group called The Corporation who wrote a lot of Jackson 5 hits. Who's in it? Who knows? No one freaking knows, because if you mention them, John Smith, then you got to pay the guy more. But if it's The Corporation, which Berry Gordy probably owned anyway, who knows? They wrote a lot of Jackson 5 mega hits. Who knows, right? A lot of the early Motown stuff was written by Berry Gordy. So not only does he produce it, but he also wrote it. So he's getting it from both sides. It's all money. A lot of the people who wrote songs for Elvis Presley had to credit Presley as a co-writer. Why? Because if he doesn't do it, if you don't agree to that, you won't get your song sung by Elvis Presley and make millions. Some guys held out, like Jerry Reed. Most said, yeah, sure, Elvis. Elvis Presley couldn't barely hold a guitar in 3 chords. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? But he composed. You look on the credits, a lot of stuff says Presley.
So he wasn't all that smart then.
Well, Colonel Parker arranged that, but that happens a lot. Celine Dion, same thing. You can lose your royalties very fast with these guys. On the other side, you can make a lot of money because she recorded your song, but you don't own your song anymore. Barbra Streisand, same gig. It's a real slippery slope. And some guys like Jerry Reed held out and said, no, you can't have it. And so Presley said, all right, well, so if you look on his albums, you'll see he's singing like Guitar Man, credit Jerry Reed. That's how that happened. He didn't need the money. Most of them needed the money.
What about your take, considering we're kind of like on the topic here, and Wheels, we touched about this in our other show about the names that were changed. Elton John, his real name obviously is Reginald Kenneth Dwight.
That's right.
So now most of his stuff that he wrote, if you always notice the credit, it says Dwight, then B. Topang.
Right.
So now is it Bernie Taupin that wrote all the stuff, or is it Elton John, or is it the same scenario where you know, like the Elvis situation. I would hope not, but you know, you would probably know a little bit more than I do, Ian, because you're.
Well, what happens is that unless he legally changes his name to Elton John, it has to be credited, right, to his given name. I don't know when he flipped it over to Elton John legally, but after that he's okay.
Because him and Bernie had a falling out.
Yeah, on and off through the years. But, you know, those guys together, it's like a Bonnie and Clyde's thing. Apart, they, you know, I don't know how strong they are. Together, you've got Yellow Brick Road, one of the greatest albums of all time. So, I don't know. It's just, often it works like that. I don't think Lennon and McCartney were pals after a while. But it's, you know, if you get no friction, you can't get the pearl out of the shell. Often these guys don't get along. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, you know, they're always after each other. And then out comes, you know, Sympathy for the Devil. Wow, okay, right? No, all the other Beach Boys hated Pet Sounds. They didn't want it released. Couldn't stand it. Mike Love almost took Brian Wilson's head off. Now it's included in the top 10 albums of all time. So...
Yeah, I saw it in the record store actually today. The Pet Sounds.
You saw it?
I saw it. Not on vinyl though. I saw. Well, no, did I see it on vinyl? No, it was actually on CD.
The real vinyl is cut in mono because Brian's deaf in one ear.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he cut it. As they say, released in beautiful mono, just like Brian did, because he can't fake stereo, right? So
this is what's that word you use to refer to Dr. Clarke? That phrase, that catchphrase.
The pearls of wisdom.
There you go.
There you go.
And this is where the operatic section comes in. So let's get to it. So I got we have a list, and for those of you listening at home, obviously we come prepared with notes. So I got to talk about the first one here, Michael Anthony. And for those of you that are big Van Halen fans like myself and my childhood friend Mark, who totally is upset about this, but so would I. They're trying to erase Michael Anthony, and from what I understand is that he was released from the band in 2006, and from my readings, to me, obviously, I think Eddie Vedder, Jesus, Eddie Van Halen's a problem. Okay, this is the way I see it. Okay, so now you got Eddie's son Wolfgang, I believe that's his name.
Yeah, Wolfgang's now playing guitar.
Yeah, so Wolfgang is now replacing Michael Anthony, and Michael Anthony had this traditional bass guitar, which was designed as a Jack Daniels bottle.
He had a 12-string, didn't he?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
He invented it, I thought. Like the guy's clever.
So my question is, and I want both of your takes on this because we're gonna have Dr. Clarke go on one era and then Wheels you go on another. You got Eddie Van Halen. He's got problems with. He's trying to now erase Michael Anthony, who helped you do all your albums. Now I saw those guys a couple years ago, and they sucked. I'm glad it was sound. Maybe it was because I was sitting in the area. I was with my spouse. It was just awful, garbage. Michael Anthony was not there. Wolfgang was there because it was only a couple years ago. David Lee Roth, thank God he was there because I don't know if I could have stomached myself without David Lee Roth. Alex is still there, but Alex doesn't really care. He just,
he phones it in.
He phones it in. But my problem is I have an issue with this, and this is not. For those of you who remember our second show, I ranted on replacing singers and all that, and I knew there was an error for Roth. I knew there was an error for Hagar, and then don't even get me started on Gary Sharon. Just because it's Gary Sharon, what the hell is he doing there? So I'm convinced, and then Dr. Clarke, you could chime in. I think Eddie's the problem. What do you think?
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen's not a stable guy. It's not a stable personality, which is bad and good, right? He's always up and down with his stuff, and he's the genius in the band, and he's the strong writer. And he has had some substance abuse issues over the year, this and that. Listen, when you recruit your son to play in your band, you're probably in trouble. John Fogerty did this recently. Listen, it's okay to give the kid a shot, et cetera, but that's not why the original fans fell in love with you, right? You're not really passing the torch. What you're doing is getting a band member you can trust because you feel you've been screwed over so often, which is like half of John Fogerty's autobiography, if you want to read it, about how people have screwed this guy over. So now he's hiring family members. I don't know. Can Wolfgang play the guitar well, or the bass well? I don't know. There's probably no Stanley Clarke up there. I don't know.
Is it cheap labor, you think?
No, I just think it's somebody you can trust, someone that you will take an order. They're very young. They're obviously half their age, and you just go from there. I just think there's a sadness about it. Why don't you hire someone who challenges you? One of McCartney's problems, which I'll get to at some point. But you've got to you need a Lennon for every McCartney. You need someone to challenge you. And if your son's sitting there, he's going to say, yeah, Dad, whatever you say, Dad, that's good, Dad. It's not going to say, I don't think we should do Abbey Road. That He's going to come back with something. You say, why don't we put it in E instead of E flat? Good. And then you do that, right?
You think he's going to tell his dad, say, why'd you go with 1984, Dad?
Yeah, he's going to say, hey, we're queuing, Dad. Okay, Dad. I'll go for Cokes. Like, this is what's going to happen. And I just think it's a trust issue and maybe an insecurity. I don't know what it is. I can understand it. You want to have your son on the road and you pass the torch. But sometimes, you know what? Just because your dad's a musician or a bricklayer or a baker doesn't mean you should be. I always pity Paul McCartney's son. Out of all the occupations in the world you could choose, anything. What do you want? I want to be like you. I want to be a musician.
Well, Julian Lennon.
And Sean.
Yeah.
And Sean.
Oh, both?
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, they're horrible.
No, you haven't heard McCartney's son. Like, as a friend, stop. Okay, stop. Kick out the plug. In fact, it's to the point, you get this YouTube video where he's singing in one of his songs, and his dad's in the background. And I thought, talk about being overwhelmed. You got Paul McCartney on keyboards, and you're playing a little bar. It's not going to work out. You know what I mean? So I always have a problem with inviting children in. It just doesn't seem to work. I've seen it work once. Brian Wilson's tour of Pet Sounds, they had the son of one of the Beach Boys doing the high kind of falsetto Brian Wilson's parts. And I thought, yeah, okay. I mean, he's a pleasant voice, no stage presence, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Whatever. It worked there, but that's the only time I've seen it work. Long-winded answer to your question, I don't think Eddie Van Halen should be hiring, his son and or daughter. Hire someone who challenges you. That's how you became great in the first place. For instance, everyone knows David Lee Roth is a super difficult personality, but in the early years, it worked. They had great songs. Roth is a goofball. Diamond Dave, come on. Everybody knows this, but they had some good stuff. That's because they didn't get along.
Yeah, you're right at point. Wheels, what's your take? And then introduce the next one to Dr. Clarke.
Okay, so my take is almost on the same lines, basically. In this case, it's literally like a guy who has a bully personality, and he's just trying probably to push out I wouldn't say the weaker members, but the more easygoing members and replacing them with his proxies, in this case, the family. So it's a nice mafia approach to it.
Is there a reason why Armando's licking your head at this moment?
Maybe the mafia comment he didn't like. So speaking of family, the next one is Brian Wilson.
Yeah, Dr. Clarke. This is
wow.
Pets. This is your.
Brian Wilson. Okay, often is referred to as a genius. All right, there are about 3 or 4 geniuses in pop music. Yeah, he is a genius. And after '67, maybe that didn't work out so well. But from '62 to '67, he's untouchable. And he wrote the songs. He produced them. He sang a lot of them. He harmonized them. Like, the guy could do no wrong, from Surfer Girl right up to Smiley Smile or something. Now, what happened after that is a well-known story. Brian had some mental health issues, and they toured without him. Well, that was the beginning of the end, really, to the point where today the Beach Boys' name is owned by Mike Love. When Brian Wilson tours, he tours as, I'll just make this up, like the Brian Wilson Band or, the Pet Sound. Mike Love tours as the Beach Boys. So, again, it comes down to money. Who got the smarter lawyer? Brian Wilson does not own the name the Beach Boys. There you go. It's just painful. But who else was it, right? It's just...
Sad they're trying to erase him, though. According to this article, they're trying to they're trying to get rid.
I disagree with the article. I don't think they're trying to erase him. I just think that they're trying to make some money, and it gets them out of the house. They're senior citizens, right? It gets them out of the house, and you get up there and you sing Good Vibrations or whatever you're going to go with, and that's it. Maybe a lot of younger people don't know that Brian Wilson wrote all this stuff, and they don't care. That's fine. And Mike Love did sing a lot of it. I don't think they're trying to erase him. They wouldn't avoid it. In fact, I've heard Mike Love mention and dedicate stuff to him. So it's not. I don't agree with the article. They're not trying to erase him. They just don't see a role. Brian can't write anymore, really. He certainly can't play an instrument. He's an older guy, and he's dropped an octave. He can't sing with his ear. He can't sing the songs. So it's not the end of the road that way, right? So I would disagree. I don't think he's trying to erase him. I just think that they've moved on. What's painful is that if you go to see the Beach Boys, there's one Beach Boy. Two are dead now?
Well, one drowned.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Dennis drowned. Carl died. And so it's really not the Beach Boys. One topic we can get into at some point is when does a band stop being a band? Like how many freaking people have to die or hit a wall before you say, you know what? It's not Jim Morrison. It can't be the Doors. Or else can you say, well, maybe the Doors can carry on, whatever it is, right?
Well, Queen's been doing it.
Queen is an interesting band that way because they're, I think, the world's most famous backing band. What they do is they back singers, Freddie Mercury impressionists. And again, it gets them out of the house. They certainly don't need the money, so maybe they're having a good time, and why not? But they own the rights to call themselves Queen, right? And that's what they do. So I don't have a huge problem with it. Just kind of beware that when you see Queen, it's not the glory days, right? It's guys limping toward the mic with a walker, and they're going to be singing, They usually have very young singers, so they still have the vocal range of Freddie Mercury at 28. You don't have that range at 68. That's gone, right? It's all over again. So they'll bring in a young singer, and they'll say Queen featuring whomever, and that's okay. They had the guy who was in Free doing it with who's the guy with the incredible voice?
Adam Lambert.
No, he's amazing voice.
Yeah, he's awesome. I like his voice.
The guy's a great. No, he's what's his name?
Robert Williams.
No, he was in the band Free, who sang "All Right Now." I forget. Why can't Paul?
Wheels.
No, I'm drawing a blank.
No, anyway.
The one goes, all right now, yeah.
That's it. He's a great singer, but during the concert, what they do is a segment where they'll put Freddie up on the screen. And he does that, in quotes, live Sinatra thing you'll see now, where people, or Elvis, they'll do it too, where they play along with the video. So you get kind of half live, half dead. And they'll have Freddie sing a song, like Killer Queen or whatever, but the band's actually playing live in 2018 to his vocal track.
So it's kind of a Living Dead karaoke scenario.
Yeah, it's a little unnerving. I don't know.
A little disturbing, but anyway.
But it's a big thing, actually. They're thinking of touring a Doors 3D band. With
the holograms?
Yeah, with the hologram coming
Lord.
out with the Doors.
There's a few that are still going?
Two are still alive.
Jesus. Like you said, when do you give it up?
When's it going to start? It's not... well, look at the Celine Dion did with Elvis. That was an amazing fake.
True.
So,
I would, if I was single, I would date Celine Dion. I would. I don't know.
Money? Or?
No, just, yeah.
Wants to hear the high octaves.
I don't know. I think she's hot. I think her and Ferris Kennedy would make a good couple. Unless Stephen Wheeler wants to come in there and ruin everything,
No. She's all yours.
Lead us to the next one there, Wheels.
So, Daryl Jones from the Rolling Stones.
Yes. Oh.
Well, what happened was that Bill Wyman left, and Bill Wyman left because he turned 108 and he didn't want to tour anymore. He had lots of money, and I think he married like a 17-year-old, whatever it was. He's an odd man, and he stopped touring, and they had to make up their mind what they're going to do, and so they brought in Daryl Jones. Now there's two camps. People say, "Boy, Bill Wyman." Was kind of like Charlie Watts. They formed the nucleus of the band. Well, at that point in the Stones' history, it was okay to become reinvigorated And I feel Daryl Jones reinvigorated that band with some great bass stuff. He can do the old stuff and he can do the new stuff. Now, in light of our subject today, you're right. They don't put the spotlight on him. In fact, whenever they have a press conference or a photo shoot, you're not going to see Daryl Jones.
Now, is he still with the band?
He sure is. But you're not going to, again, it's the fact that you're not even aware of that and you're in the music, right? That's how they push him in the background. If you see it on YouTube, it's the only time they'll pay attention because the camera can't avoid him. I don't know what they pay him, but he's credited on albums. But of course, he's a very famous sideman, or more like a session guy. So it is kind of painful, but there you go.
No relation to John Paul Jones? Well, I got to ask. Isn't he? No, not John Paul Jones. Brian Jones, sorry. Brian Jones was... Because they were saying that Brian Jones is actually the mastermind of the original Rolling Stones.
Yeah, Brian Jones founded the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
He gave them their name.
So then, you got Brian Jones, and you got... What's this other guy's here? I forgot his name now.
They're different ethnic...
Daryl Jones.
Different ethnic backgrounds.
Oh.
Put it that way.
All right, so they're not related.
Radically different.
Because for me, when I hear the Stones, I think of Mick Jagger,
Yeah.
Keith Richards. I think he's dead.
No, he came back to life.
Okay, he came back to life.
Many times.
Yeah, apparently he did. Ron Wood.
Yeah,
And,
again, he came back to life.
and Watts.
Charlie Watts.
Charlie Watts. Okay, those are the four guys. And then I knew that Brian Jones was there because he's on that album cover, the last one that I have, and then he died because he drowned. And now
Right.
we got Daryl Jones, who I had no idea was ever with the band until I read this article, and now Dr. Clarke has put it into perspective.
Well,
that-
there you go. I mean, listen, when Brian Jones died, he was out of the Rolling Stones. A lot of people don't know that he died. He didn't die in office. Jagger and Richards drove over to his house and fired him. And they believe that's part of the reason that he was drinking a lot and doing a lot of dope, and he, in quotes, drowned, although people right now think that perhaps he was, it goes beyond drowning, there was a homicide. Anyway, we'll do that for another show. But Brian Jones was out of the band. And by that time, they were already with Mick Taylor. And that happened. And then Mick Taylor's an amazing guitarist, like unbelievable. And then he left for no good reason. They once asked him why. He said, I don't know. But he walked out. So... Again, a cluttered history with the Rolling Stones, but the Glimmer Twins are the heart of that band, Jagger, Richards, and as long as they're together, we got the Rolling Stones. In terms of Daryl Jones, their invisible bassist, listen, he's got a great gig, right? Every night he tours, he plays with the Rolling Stones, so good and bad. Again, I think the article's probably harsh. I wouldn't say they purposely bury him. When they hired him, they probably said, this is the gig, are you interested? And of course he's going to say yeah. You can contrast that with somebody like Clarence Clement, he's deceased now, used to play sax with Bruce Springsteen. He didn't write any songs, but he was the featured member. He's on the Born to Run cover, right?
Yes, he is.
He was part of the E Street Band. To his credit, Springsteen always had an E Street Band. He could have buried those guys, right? Niles Lofgren and all these guys. He could have buried them, but he didn't. A band's a band, man. So I don't think they buried Daryl Jones, but I think he's just a very fortunate session man.
Okay, so we're going to go to another one of these legendary groups. So the next one is Bill Ward from Black Sabbath.
Oh, this is your wheelhouse wheels.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Bill Ward is a strange kind of situation where, in this case, he's the one erasing himself from the lineup because he got his lawyers to say that he wasn't joining the Black Sabbath lineup for the reunion tour, although it's not very clear what's going on there. So basically, there's 30 years of animosity that they have to go over. And Geezer Butler and Ozzy apparently were able to bury the hatchet. Apparently Bill Ward, not so much. Although, depending on the source, sometimes you hear scheduling conflicts. Other times you just hear that they still hate each other's guts. Who knows? All we know in this case is that he didn't join them for the 13th album. Didn't join them for the farewell, the first farewell tour. God knows how many of them we're going to see in the next coming years. But so basically, yeah. So in this case, it's a really strange situation where basically Ozzy and Geezer told him, well, I mean, we're still going to acknowledge you. And he just said, no, my lawyers will see you. And I have nothing to do with you guys. I don't want to be anywhere near this tour. So I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to soil the memory of the great old days. God only knows. Maybe he's regretting it right now because they're getting really high accolades in the critical press, and they're making, I won't say the word, but loads of money.
I don't understand. Like, Ozzy seems like so cool. Yeah, he's probably messed up in the head a little bit.
Yeah, he seems, again, like a difficult personality. Maybe these guys are they just want to move on. Maybe he's in the film business. I don't know. Maybe he opened a restaurant. One of the guys from Love and Spoonful opened a restaurant in London, Ontario. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Didn't want to do a reunion with John Sebastian. Zalzowski, that's what he did. And he just was tired of music. It was a gig when he was 18, and now he's bored and he moves on. You always think that, there was this passion that's burning. Sometimes they're just trying to meet girls. And then once they do, it kind of burns out and they move on. And that happens all the time with bands. So I think it's really funny that the guy's trying to get his name off one of the biggest bands around, right?
Well, when you talk about meeting girls, this is a good segue to open up again for you, Wheels, on John Corabi from Motley Crue.
Yeah, exactly. Who stepped in after Vince Neil's departure.
For 30 days, right?
More or less, yeah, for the self-titled 94 album. And ever since then, they've basically pretended that he never existed, was never part of the band, and basically are being jackasses about the whole thing, when in actuality, the guy revigorated the band back in 94. So, again, in this case, I'm guessing ego more than anything else.
Well, didn't Vince Neil do, 30 days in prison for shooting somebody?
I hope so.
No, he did.
I mean, guys, they're all messes.
Yeah, but he got off on a technicality because he was hammered. He did like
great.
30 days or something like that. I saw Motley Crue 2014 or 2013. They sucked.
Really?
The only thing I really liked was when Tommy Lee had this friggin' drum set that's a roller coaster and he was spinning around. Friggin' made you dizzy. It was kind of cool. That was about it. That was the highlight. Like, this is sad.
That is really sad.
This is two bands, I'm telling you right now. By the way, I saw Springsteen. They were good. He was good. Yeah. And they'd honored, what was his name? The saxophonist?
Clarence Clemens.
Yes, they honored him at that concert. Yes, they did. But Springsteen, right? Like, he never, like you say, he never buried East Street Band. No. But Motley Crue, they were awful. I just didn't like them. Van Halen was just awful. And to be honest, I actually saw, going back to the first one, Bon Jovi without Sambora. And there was girls there with an I Love Walter sign. So I don't know if Walter's the new guitarist, but, this is now we're probably going to have another article where they're now trying to erase Richie Sambora because he's not in the group anymore. But I'm just getting, going. I'm sorry, Wheels, I cut you off on John Corabi with Motley Crue's awful concert that I saw in 2013. Jesus.
Well, I mean, there's not that much to say because, it's a little like the situation of Phil Rudd from AC/DC, where basically they're, again, pretending that he never existed. Because so if you go on the website, the official website, you'll see pictures of Young, you'll see pictures of Scott, of Malcolm Young, and Angus Young. But Phil Rudd has disappeared like he never existed. And he's been there for a long time. I mean, he's been there since 75. He was there from 75 to 83. Then he came back in 94.
So you got to work with two of the singers. Because Jailbreak was 74 came out. And that was, because the first original singer of AC/DC was Dave Evans. Or Mark Evans. Yeah. Evans. Then it went to Bon Scott.
Yeah.
And then he died.
Yeah.
And then I went to Brian Johnson. So I grew up in the era of Brian Johnson. But I appreciate the Bon Scott stuff. And I've never heard of Phil Rudd until I read this freaking article. Like, who the hell's Phil Rudd? And he was in the prime years. 75 to 83.
It's funny, the way that works out.
But this was the prime freaking years.
I mean, he was there even recently. He was there in 2014 for Rock or Bust. He's on there. He's on the recording.
Like, these guys got to retire. I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, it's a roller coaster, right? They just can't stop it. So,
but they're not broke.
I know, but what
Maybe they can't stand their wives.
Yeah, they got alimony. I don't know what it is, but
I'm glad I'm not in that position, man. I'm happy.
yeah, there's just, it's not a great situation. It looks good on video, but a lot of these guys have pretty rough gigs, rough lives, and they have to keep going to pay off these horrible contracts they signed when they were like 12 years old or whatever it is, and they're shackled, so they just keep going.
Plus, in this case, it's really when you look at the reasons that were given by lawyers for his erasing of the from the ban. They said it's because of an arrest in 2014 for threatening to kill 2 people, possession of cannabis, and methamphetamine.
No,
At this point, this is like basic rock and roll stuff.
that's
Really.
This guy should be in jail for crying out loud.
that's what you have to do to get into the band.
Exactly. Usually.
I mean, come on. But it's just, as we're talking about this, one that really strikes me is Don Felder with the Eagles, because this guy, in fact, I heard recently the demo tape for Hotel California, coincidentally about 2 weeks ago, and it's 90% written. And in other words, he wrote their seminal song. He wrote the foundation. When people think of, the Eagles, they think of Hotel California. An amazing song, a really strong album. And then he argued, I don't know what happened. Glenn Frey was a difficult personality too. Everybody argued with him. And they just didn't get along. I think they physically assaulted each other, and he was booted out of the band. But he's a gifted musician, and he came back, as I recall, for the induction the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I might be off on that. I recall he came back for that, and he may have played with him a few times. But his big quote is, "We speak through our attorneys," and they do. Those guys, for whatever reason, just don't get along, and that does happen, And it's sad, but he's a gifted musician. One of the problems too is when you leave a band as big as the Eagles, I don't know. It worked out for the members of, or at least one member of Nirvana, but Dave Grohl. But usually you're stuck with it. I mean, you can't really appear in any other form. But the former member of the Eagles, here he is, right?
Yeah, it's like the spouses. Like she's the ex-wife of, or the
right.
ex-husband of.
So
he's this gentleman now is labeled. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's an ex-Eagle, and that's pretty cool. But you don't have to. You carry that baggage with you. When Graham Parsons left the Flying Burrito Brothers, whoever, he's with the Byrds. Whenever he appeared, it's got Graham Parsons. The guy used to be with the Byrds, really, the Byrd. But they're so famous, right? They're one of those seminal cornerstone bands. So you're just going to have to eat that up and go with it. Ringo Starr's lived with it all his life. I mean, you can't get it. It makes you, breaks you. And you're going to have to be tough to get through it. So, yeah, they buried Don Felder because the guys in the band, the 2 lead guys, and they just didn't, it's too complicated. And it came down to money, and he makes his royalties from Hotel California, whatever, and that's it. He actually wrote an autobiography, and he just laces into them. So, what's the other singers? Don Henley? Yeah.
Yeah, Don Henley, to me it was always Don Henley, Glenn Frey. But who's the guy with the long hair? I always forget his name.
Oh, he's great. His name, he used to be in Poco, really high voice.
Yeah.
Oh, God, what's his name? Help me. But, yeah, they're and, of course, Joe Walsh, right?
Is it Joe Walsh?
Joe Walsh came in later, replacing a few guitarists, so to speak. Joe Walsh is another interesting guy, right? One of those, I don't know, he went from really great bands, and he ended up with the Eagles, another great band, but he's kind of the class clown. And, whatever he has, I don't know. But Eagles is a money-making machine. They're more famous now, and they make more money than they did 25 years ago in their prime. Figure it out. Baby boomers? I don't know. So there's a good reason sometimes you ask why these guys come back. Pink Floyd makes more money now than they ever did in 1973. Well,
not a big fan of Pink Floyd. and Cream. I don't like Cream. Just saying that for the record. Okay.
Just for that, I'm going to play a Cream riff if I have to.
All right, that's good. So I'm going to get to the point, actually, before I get to this next one. I think it's time for a segment that I like to call Dun Dun Dun. Ian's knock. Dr. Clarke, it's time for you to crap on somebody.
I'm not. I'm just. I'm going to go easy on this one, because then I'll build up slowly and maybe circle around. This is one of the things we're talking about. Classic rock here. Now, what happens with classic rock is sometimes in the States, in pop music, if you can write 2 or 3 songs, hit songs, you have a career in the States. All you need is 2 or 3 songs, 2.5-minute songs, and you can live your life away from a factory floor. Basically, you can play Reno, you can play Vegas, whatever it is, and that's fine. If you have, let's say, 2 classic albums, for instance, like Steve Miller, which he plays, for ad nauseum, he's built a career around that, or Meatloaf with one really strong album, which he plays ad nauseum at concerts. You can carry a life. And now, that's good and bad. It's like there's a tendency in all of us for new things. You want a new song. You want a new car, right? Whatever it is. When a guy comes out and does a really close rendition of McCartney might do Band on the Run, I always get the feeling, why don't I just get the album? Like, McCartney's a good case in point because he's so gifted and he's so creative, and he had a 10-year run from 62 to 72. He could do no wrong. And after Band on the Run and a little bit in Venus and Mars, it just went through his hand like sand, and he just seems incapable of putting forward great music. But he's so talented, he has this momentum. But right now, he's the highest profile, best paid nostalgia act. And it sounds cruel to say it, but it's true. He markets his some of his albums now through the Starbucks label. Okay, he could buy Starbucks. He could buy, he's worth how many billion, but that's what he does. And it kind of throws you off because these guys are so gifted, and it ends and nothing new comes out. I like the old stuff, sure, but you always, how many times can you sing Yesterday or Fool in the Hill or Hey Jude without losing your mind? All right? How often does he sit in front of that piano and went, Hey Jude, and boom. Because it's over. But he has to do it. When he's out there, he's not singing songs from his album Back to the Egg. No, he's singing, I don't know, whatever it is. He's singing Fool on the Hill or Your Mother Should Know or Magical Mystery Tour. Things that were written in some cases 50 years ago. 50. Like, it's unbelievable how old some of these guys are. When he sings I Saw Her Standing There, I think he was, 17 when he wrote it? That's why he says she was just 17. You know what I mean? There's nothing twisted about it. The guy was 18 or something when he wrote it. What is he now, in his early 70s?
Yeah,
and you got to go out every night, and sing. So there's a weariness to it that I find kind of irritating. I saw Brian Wilson, I mentioned earlier, on the Pet Sounds tour. Okay. I'm not sure why I go to these things, but Brian Wilson sat
Hope springs
there.
eternal.
I don't know if it was a massacre, but it is Brian Wilson, and so you do kind of go Walking Dead right over the fence, and you just walk toward him, and you stand there, and he sings Pet Sounds, actually, from side 1, flip it, side B, and in order. It's very odd, and it's pretty good, but you could probably even get a better rendition from somebody who wasn't Brian Wilson, who still has, the chops to do it. So there is this weird nostalgia thing going on that's probably not that wholesome with a lot of stuff. So that's kind of the way I look at it, is that a lot of this stuff is kind of riding on old laurels, riding on yesteryear. And the only reason the original stuff came around is because somebody cranked it out in 1973. The only reason we have classic rock is because the Eagles sat down to write Hotel California, or the Beatles or the Stones did, I don't know, one of their great Ghost Head Soup album, whatever it was. They put it together. Exile on Main Street. They put it together for that short period of time, or in Exile's case, a long period of time. And that's why we have that. But they don't do that anymore. They get old, they get rich, and they get lazy. And so the Stones put out, what was the most recent one? A cover of blues songs. Really? I mean, these are the guys that wrote Honky Tonk Woman, Jumpin' Jack Flash, Brown Sugar. A cover of blues songs. All right. I think it's probably just to get out of the house.
Is this that Lonesome Blue album? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
thought I actually liked that one.
Probably because he doesn't necessarily consider it a Rolling Stones album, just a blues album.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's okay, but maybe I'll just buy the Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf or one of these guys in the studio, the original. So that's the thing is, how far do you want to let it go until someone kicks out the plug and says, okay, Paul, you were a genius. For 10 years you did no wrong. You had a good run, amazing run. You've been knighted. You sell out stadiums, but you're a nostalgia act. And you just have to live with that. If you can, we can. But there's something kind of throwback about it that I would love to hear a really, really good new Paul McCartney song. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Apparently, he did release an album, a new one. Is there an article on that?
Probably.
Unless I read it wrong, I'll get back to you on that one, Dr. Clarke. But
Probably.
And once you can listen to it, you could probably crap on it. if you
Well, wait a
want.
second. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But you're not going to hear For No One or Good Day Sunshine or Sgt. Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to hear that. You're
No.
gonna-
Good day, sunshine. I like that. Scrambled eggs. How I like my scrambled eggs.
Yeah, imagine that. You wake up with that tune. Yes, you are gifted to actually wake up with that in your head. But so when does that stop? When you're like 38 or when you're 30? Whatever, it stopped because it's really hard for me to think back on a great Paul McCartney song.
Well, hold on. You did a good one with Rihanna and Kanye there.
Oh, please. Okay, that's a novelty act. All right? I mean, don't get me going. That's called stunt casting.
It was great though to see Rihanna like trying to lose her whole suit that she was wearing because
Yeah,
she
that's
just had
good.
nothing on there. But it was great. You know,
I mean, that's
Wheels. Did you like that,
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Clarke? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the ordinary for her.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's called in film. It's called stunt casting. Like, wouldn't it be great if we got Arnold Schwarzenegger to play? I don't know, someone's maid. Like you cast against type, right? So to put Paul McCartney into, I don't know, a rap video. I get it. You're clever. It could have been anyone else. Did he contribute much to it? Nah. He's this senior citizen sitting around with these guys, right? It's kind of. No, because of that, he has this record now where he had, I don't know, the longest space between hits is something like 200 years. The longest space between hits with that and whatever he had, I guess, Mulligan Tar, whatever it was. Like it's been over 30 years. That's pretty good. But it's stunt casting. It doesn't hurt to bring a Beatle in on your album.
Yeah, a good repeat best. He's looking for work. All right, so we're gonna make Ian stop his knock for now. Then we'll get back to Ian's knock in another segment because we'll do more shows with Ian. So now we're going to go to Steve Adler, and I'm a big GNR guy. I'm a Guns N' Roses guy. And this one here actually kind of surprises me that they would try to want to erase Steve Adler. Now, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but drugs always play an issue in these things.
Not necessarily always, but quite often.
90%.
All right, so here we are. You got Guns N' Roses comes out. Izzy Stradlin is there. You got, Slash, Axl, Steve Adler, and Duff McKagan. So to me, whenever I think of Guns N' Roses, it's always going to be Axl, Duff, and Slash. Yeah, Izzy's good, but he's pretty well pieced out. And Steve Adler, he was there in the beginning. And it's kind of interesting to see how they went from Appetite to Destruction, which is such a kick-ass album. It's probably it has to be in my top 10 for sure. Okay, and then they went into Lies, which is actually just as freaking good. You basically could have extended that together. Then they take a bit of a break, and then when they come back, there's no Steve Adler. It's actually the drummer from The Cult.
Yeah.
And I forget his name, but it's the guy with the blonde hair and the earrings, and he was looking for work, I guess, right?
Sure.
So this is what really surprises me. Obviously, I think it has to be drugs. And I know he's an alcoholic. He did have I didn't interview him myself, but it was an interview that I think he had a drinking problem. And they basically just fired him because this guy just kind of went AWOL. But now I believe from what I'm reading here, there was a reunion in 2016, and they're still not over that, and he's not in. They don't want him in.
Yeah.
They got now Steve Ferrer, excuse me. Steve Ferrer is the current drummer right now for GNR. And I saw them in concert. And let me tell you, Ian, they're awesome. I saw them last year. Lansdowne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was quite aware of that. Believe me, I used to live near that, that venue.
So that brings me to another band that I love. And I got really good sweet emotions about this one. Hey, you know what? For years, and I always thought that Sweet Emotion was sang by Joe Perry himself. I didn't think it was Steve Tyler. I was convinced that Joe Perry sang that one song. Oh, not Sweet Emotion, sorry. Dream On. Dream On.
Everyone is... The old myth used to be that Robert Plant snuck in. Like, there was all these myths behind
it. Doesn't sound like Steve Tyler.
It sounds a lot like Robert Plant with the Banshee whale stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So who is it then?
Steve Tyler.
You think?
I seen him perform it, yeah. And sounds... They did something to his voice on it, though, I think. I don't know what it is.
Well, you never know what tape. They can do miracles.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Well, anyways, this is a guy I never even heard of, Jimmy Crespo. And given my age, obviously, I didn't really get into Aerosmith until Eat the Rich was where it really came out. Actually, sorry, Pump. Eat the Rich tour was the first concert I ever went to for Aerosmith. They came again to Lansdowne. And it was epic. It was a lot of, it was huge, man. But I never even heard of this guy, Jimmy Crespo. I know, was it Tom, Jesus. It was Tom Hamilton, Brad Whitford, Joey Kramer, Joe Perry, Steve Tyler. That to me was always Aerosmith, those 5 guys. I never heard of Jimmy Crespo. And even clearly says over here, even Aerosmith fans might have forgotten about Jimmy Crespo, despite his tenure for 5 years, 79 to 84. So, what happened there?
What's Aerosmith? So I'm guessing drugs.
Yeah, I mean, they used to call what? Perry and Tyler the Toxic Twins?
Well, they're the band.
They're the band. So, you're right. It's usually drugs. And like we go flashback to Brian Jones and the Rolling Stones. One of the big problems there is Mick Jagger says some people can handle fame, and other people, it really does go to their head like pure heroin, and they don't know how to handle it, and they go right off the deep end. Other guys, it invigorates, right? Like Springsteen or something. Alone, he probably shrinks. Put him in front of a crowd, he's Superman. So they take drugs for a reason. And, maybe they just don't belong in the spotlight. A lot of these guys don't. It's tough to be a front man, right? So maybe that's part of it. You have to remember, all these bands, 90% start as bar bands in some, dreadful little town somewhere in Oregon or something. And then what happens is you get famous. You're going to get a producer, a few songs, and suddenly you're a big shot. And they may not want to have gone, down that road in that way. They may have wanted just to remain small. A lot of guys bail in the early years of bands. If you look at the history of popular bands, inevitably there's 1 or 2 guys that drop out before they hit it big. Charlie Watts joined the Rolling Stones because he, quote, didn't want to travel much. He didn't think they were going anywhere. He was with a different band before that. And that's why he joined the Stones. He just didn't see anything with them. They're a local London band. We know what happened to the Rolling Stones. Yeah, he had to travel a bit in his life. So
just a little bit.
A little bit. So that's why, these guys often do stuff. They just, they go to art school. There's a whole bunch of art school graduates in British classic rock. Rock and rollers, rather. And that's what Eric Clapton, the Beatles, it goes on and on. They planned different things. Ringo Starr wanted to be a hairdresser, and he wanted to use the early Beatles money to fund hairdressing salons. He didn't know it's going to keep going. They're just goofballs. They're just, they're not planning, strategizing, the deployment of, short-term debentures and Apple Corporate. They're just out there keeping a 4/4 beat, and he's trying to make enough money to open hair salons. So there's no grand strategy with these guys. You can't look at that. They're business managers, the Colonel Parkers of the world, yeah. He kept a choke chain on Elvis, which is why Elvis never played, with one very rare exception, never played in Europe.
Because Colonel Parker couldn't travel.
So, these guys. Anyway, that's a mini rant.
Wheels, you're up next with...
Jeff Nichols.
What is with you and Black Sabbath?
It's probably my age.
Jesus. All right, so what did Jeff do now?
Okay, well, it's not so much what he did. It's basically, in his case, it's because a lot of concert goers couldn't have picked him up from a police lineup. Although he's been in Black Sabbath since the 80s. He's been on all their major albums from 80 all the way to 07. His last album was live at the Hammersmith Odeon. And I mean, it's with time and with a lot of the pressures. He was put on the back burner for a lot of the tours, and unfortunately, also there's an image problem. He's a keyboard player, and Black Sabbath, the main members thought, well, it doesn't really seem metal enough, so they basically put him behind the curtains at some shows. So at one point, he just probably thought, well, what's the point of going on? And now they have the reunion tour with the original members, and there's this debate in the Black Sabbath community: is Heaven and Hell, Forbidden, and all these albums that were critically loved back in the day, are they still really Sabbath? So he's unfortunately on the wrong end of the stick, but that's the case of so many of these people, and we're going to see that with the Kiss guys.
Oh yeah, Ian, here you go.
Well, Kiss, if any band in the history of the planet was run as a corporation, it's Kiss. I mean, Gene Simmons is more a businessman than a musician, and he'd probably be the first to admit it, right? That's his shtick. And if someone gets kicked out of Kiss, it's for probably monetary reasons, not so much drugs.
Oh, that was the makeup. It didn't fit right.
Yeah, really. That was it.
That's the makeup budget that's being...
You got Kiss beer. You actually can buy a Kiss coffin now. Kiss,
a coffin?
A coffin. You can buy a casket
with
Kiss, imprimatur. So Peter Criss, everyone knows he co-wrote Beth. And listen, it's Gene Simmons. Again, he's a really aggressive guy. He's a focused businessman. And I don't know what happened to this dude. If he's pulling his weight, he couldn't write hits anymore. Probably he wanted more money. And Gene Simmons owns the Kiss name. He owns everything. He owns the image. He owns the logo. He owns everything about them. You are an employee. And if you don't like it, adios. That's simple. That's my take on it. It's a business, right? He can do without you. You are replaceable. I've always treated Kiss as a novelty act anyway. So it doesn't really... I'm probably not the best guy to go down that route with the makeup and stuff. I get it. But I look at Kiss as a money-making machine. And Simmons is a clever lad, and he's made zillions, from a reality TV show to you name it. And this guy, poor Peter Criss, didn't fit the bill. He wasn't on the menu.
Well, with that being said, this brings our first show with Dr. Clarke to an end. And definitely want to thank Dr. Clarke for taking time to come with us. And maybe next time we'll find out if the rumor is true that you did date Joan Jett, if this is even true.
Joan Jett, yeah. I was really into. Was her previous band was the all-girl group?
The Runaways?
The Runaways. And yeah. But right now I can see my parole officer knocking at the door. So I have to go back to my room, as they say.
Oh,
So-
that's what the sound of the chains is. Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah.
But before we do, Ian, why don't you give the listeners the website for your blog? And
I don't know it. I don't know it. But I do know this. No, I don't know it. You could just Google Ian Clarke, 1960s pop culture, and it's going to come up. It's an old blog. It's been there since the 60s, I think, and it'll come up, and we'll take it from there. But I don't actually know the address. It doesn't matter. In the world
Nobody
of
knows the addresses anymore anyway.
It doesn't matter.
Google does it for you.
Just talk to
Exactly.
Google now, right? You don't have to
Exactly.
type anymore. Google, make me young again. Boom, you're young. It's incredible.
So that's a wrap for our end. For those of you that still want to send us an email, and I think after this show you're probably going to send us a lot of emails because you know who the hell Ian's parole officer is. Our email address is theferriswheelshow@gmail.com. Wheels, what's our Twitter handle?
It's the Ferris Wheel Show. At the Ferris Wheel Show.
At
sorry.
Ferris Wheel Show. So, without further ado, I'm going to say goodnight. I'm your host, Ferris Kennedy, and my co-host,
Stephen Wheeler.
and we have Dr. Clarke.
Thanks very much.
And that's a wrap.